They painted my face with ash before sending me into the pit. Not to honor the gods, just to make me look like something I wasn't. Something already half gone. The first time I heard the crowd scream my name, I wanted to disappear into the floor. People cheering not because they loved me, but because they didn't have to be me. Because they wanted to see if I'd still be standing after the dirt stopped flying. My name is Cassius. At least, it was. Before the collar. Before the training hall with walls that sweated blood and the scent of vinegar and old iron never left your nose. Before the man in the red cloak bought me from the line of slaves and said I had the right bones to entertain. At first, I thought he meant I'd dance. I learned otherwise. The first weeks blurred together. Not from time, but from pain. My legs didn't stop shaking for days after they made us run in circles, chained, barefoot, over gravel. If you fell, they didn't stop you. They just watched to see if you'd crawl or cry. I crawled. I didn't cry. The others did. The ones who didn't last long. They kept us under the barracks in a long stone hall with no windows. You couldn't tell if it was day or night. That's what stripped you first, your sense of time, then your sense of self. We had no names down there. Only the numbers scratched into the wood above our bunks. Mine was 11. The floor was always wet. Not soaked, just damp enough to keep your skin cold and your mind uncomfortable. You'd sleep with your knees pulled up to your chest, listening to the snoring, the wheezing, the quiet prayers in foreign tongues. Sometimes someone would scream in their sleep. We stopped asking why. The trainers had a way of walking, heels first, hard and deliberate, so you always heard them coming. Their arrival meant someone would bleed, even if just a little. They didn't always need a reason. One morning, they brought in a boy, younger than me, maybe 13. He had freckles, like someone had thrown sand across his cheeks. He looked around like he still believed there was a way out. That made me nervous. They put him in the ring on the second day. Not against another boy. Against a man. He didn't stand a chance. That wasn't the point. The point was to see who would watch and who would look away. I didn't look away. Neither did he. When they dragged him out, his eyes were still open. After that, the food tasted different. Like ashes and broth. I ate anyway. Hunger does strange things to the body. It bends your pride and flattens your morals. By the third month, I could eat with hands covered in mud and not notice. The first time they put me in the ring was under the morning sun. It was blinding after so many weeks underground. I blinked and still couldn't see straight. They laughed. I could hear them through the gates, the way they laughed at dogs chasing their tails. They gave me a wooden staff. The man across from me had nothing but fists. They called it a test. He was faster than me. Smarter, too. He danced around like a shadow, darting in, tapping my ribs, slipping away before I could react. The crowd was silent, waiting, measuring. Then I got lucky. He stepped wrong. I didn't. The wood cracked against his collarbone. I felt it, the sudden give beneath the skin, like pressing too hard on a right figure. He dropped. He didn't get up. I didn't win. There were no winners. Just survivors. They fed me better that night. Not much. Just an extra piece of bread, slightly warm. The kind of thing that makes your hands tremble while holding it. I didn't share. No one asked me to. Eventually, I stopped wondering what day it was. Whether the emperor was in town. Whether the crowd loved me or not. The noise became part of the ritual. Stretch, pace, enter, survive. Over and over. Until one day, everything shifted. It started with a smell. Not blood, not sweat. Those were constants. This was different. Something sweet, too sweet, like fruit rotting in the heat. It came from the holding cells. The ones we weren't allowed to speak about. They called it preparation. I heard the guards whisper. Something about infection. About someone being marked. The next morning, they didn't let us out. We sat in the barracks all day. No sun. No fight. Just silence. One by one, the men around me started coughing. Then I did too. Not loud. Just a tickle in the throat that wouldn't go away. Then came the fever. Your skin would burn while your fingers went numb. You'd shake, then sweat, then sleep so deeply you didn't know if you were dreaming or already halfway gone. They moved us upstairs again. Not to heal us, just to separate us. I watched the same guards who once barked orders now whisper and keep their distance. One held a cloth over his face. That's when I knew. We weren't warriors anymore. We were liabilities. They started pulling out the sick ones at night. No one said where they went. The bunks emptied. The air grew thicker. I could taste it when I breathed sour, metallic, wrong. One evening, I heard a sound. Not the usual kind. Soft. Rhythmic. Like humming. I turned. A man across from me was sitting up, eyes closed, swaying side to side. His lips moved, but the sound didn't match. It wasn't prayer. It wasn't a song. It was something else. Like he was remembering a lullaby from a life he no longer belonged to. Then he stopped. His head tilted. He didn't move again. No one touched him. No one said a word. The next time they opened the door, they took him and 3 others. They didn't come back. I started keeping track. Not of time. Of absences. By the end of that week, only 7 of us remained. Then they came for me. 2 guards. Silent. No expressions. Just hands on my shoulders and the cold iron of the collar once again. I didn't ask where we were going. I didn't care. They led me outside. Not to the arena. To the gardens. I hadn't seen trees in so long I forgot what green looked like. The sunlight hurt. My skin twitched as if it couldn't remember how to feel warmth. We walked past fountains and statues and vines twisted around marble columns. Everything smelled of jasmine and rosemary. Too clean. Too perfect. Like a lie wrapped in perfume. They brought me to a room with silk cushions and fruit on silver trays. A man sat waiting. He was dressed in white. Rings on every finger. His face was calm, unreadable. He offered me a peach. I didn't take it. He asked if I wanted freedom. My mouth didn't move. He asked again. But it wasn't a question. It was a test. A different kind. I nodded. He smiled. He said, "Then you will do exactly as I say." And just like that, I realized. This wasn't escape. It was another kind of arena. One with no sand, no crowds, no gates. Only silence. And obedience. And something in his voice that made my hands go cold. Something that told me I might wish I'd stayed beneath the earth. The peach was still on the table when I left the room. Untouched. They gave me a new tunic. White. No stains, no chains. It should have felt like freedom. But it clung to my skin like wet parchment, and I couldn't stop shaking. Not from the fever. I'd survived that somehow, but from the silence. No crowds. No screaming. No blood in the sand. Only footsteps on marble, and the soft rustling of silk robes behind closed doors. They didn't send me back to the barracks. They placed me in a room with no lock, but the message was clear. You don't leave unless called. You don't speak unless spoken to. You don't ask questions. Ever. Sometimes the door would open and a servant would enter, always barefoot, eyes cast down. They'd bring food or clothes or scented oil for the bath I never used. I stopped counting the days. There was nothing to count toward. At night, I'd lie awake listening. The palace never slept. Somewhere beyond my walls, voices drifted, low, laughing, pretending. Music too soft to dance to. Murmurs behind curtains. The kind of world that pretended it didn't know people like me existed. Then, one night, they summoned me. Not to the arena. To the banquet hall. A room bigger than any house I'd seen. Filled with polished bronze and glass that caught the candlelight and threw it around like a hallucination. Cushions lined the floor. Plates of figs, roasted game, barley bread soaked in honey. And people. Not like the crowd in the stands. No, these were polished and perfumed, swaying with too much wine and too little empathy. Their fingers sparkled. Their laughter sliced. One of them saw me. His mouth curled. I remember you. You were the boy with the staff, yes? The one who cracked that Numidian's shoulder like a nut. I didn't answer. He laughed anyway. They made me stand there, still and silent, like a statue that might be asked to perform tricks. One woman snapped her fingers and threw a date at my feet. She missed on purpose. No one told me what I was supposed to do. That was the game. Finally, the man in white, the one who offered me freedom, stood. He raised a single finger. I followed him. We walked through the candlelit corridors in silence until we reached a smaller chamber. No cushions. No fruit. Just a scroll on the table and a chair across from a boy. Not a man, a boy. Maybe 15. Too clean, too nervous. The man turned to me. He's never seen a blade before. You're to train him. I looked at the boy. His hands trembled as he picked up the wooden practice sword. I nodded. And just like that, I became something else. Not a gladiator. A tutor. An ornament. A tool. The next weeks passed in routine. I trained the boy every morning. His name was Gaius, and tried to keep his fingers from blistering. He winced at every impact. He flinched at shadows. But he listened. He never spoke more than necessary, but I could tell when he trusted me. It was in the way he stopped apologizing every time he stumbled. Then one morning, I arrived at the courtyard and he wasn't there. Instead, 2 guards waited. They led me back to the arena. I hadn't seen it in months. It looked smaller than I remembered. The sand had been replaced. The smell hadn't changed. The stands were empty, except for one person, Gaius. He sat alone in the shade, arms crossed, watching. I stood in the ring. The gate creaked open behind me, and he entered, holding the sword I taught him to use. He didn't meet my eyes. I didn't move. A voice echoed from above. Let the boy show what he's learned. Gaius hesitated. I nodded just once. He charged. His form was perfect. My form. My rhythm. I stepped aside, let the blade pass me, swept his legs, dropped him gently. Not to mock. To teach. Again. He stood. Swung harder. Sloppier. I blocked, turned, stopped the blow midair. He panted. His lip trembled. Again. 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 Until his sword dropped. And he fell to his knees. I can't, he whispered. Someone above him sighed. Then clapped. Slow. Deliberate. A guard entered. Enough for today. They led me away. That night, I didn't return to the palace. They put me in a room I hadn't seen before. Smaller. No windows. Just stone walls and a single bench. The door locked behind me. Hours passed. Then a voice. One I hadn't heard since the pits. The red-cloaked man. The one who bought me. He sat down beside me without a word. Then he handed me a scroll. You've been sold, he said. Again. He nodded. Back to the games? No. To whom, then? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. To someone who values loyalty. I opened the scroll. It was blank. Then I noticed the mark on the edge. A seal I didn't recognize. A snake eating its own tail. He stood. Pack what little you have. I didn't move. He left anyway. I don't know how long I sat there. Eventually, the door opened again. A different man entered. Younger. Pale. Hair like straw. He didn't speak. Just handed me another tunic. Black this time. And a medallion. Same symbol. The snake. It was cold to the touch. They brought me to a different house. No banners. No statues. Just heavy wooden doors and quiet halls. The men inside didn't laugh. They didn't speak at all. Only nodded. Bowed. Obeyed. There was no arena. No audience. Only silence. And training. Different now. Not just movement, discipline. Not just strength, submission. We learned how to move without being seen. How to breathe without sound. How to disappear. And one day, we learned how not to ask why. I saw Gaius again. Briefly. In the forum. He walked past me dressed in white, surrounded by servants, laughing. He didn't see me. Or maybe he pretended not to. I kept walking. That night, they gave me a name. Not Cassius. Not 11. A name I was told to forget as soon as I left the room. I was no longer a man. I was a message. Delivered by silence. Signed in fear. Sealed in shadows. And somewhere deep beneath it all, I still felt the sand under my feet. Still heard the crowd. Still smelled the blood. Only now, the arena was the world. And there was no gate left to close.